and welcome to the Priggya Arora Show, where we discuss law and entrepreneurship with people who have been there and done that. My name is Priggya Arora, founder of PA Legal and Intellectual Property Law Firm in India. And our guest for today is someone who is breaking down barriers between law, technology, and business, Mr. Colin Levy. Welcome, Colin, on the show.
Thank you very much for having me.
Yeah. So, Colin, we'll just start with our fun warm-up question, which is, what is one thing in life you can't live without?
You know, it's funny. If you'd asked me this question maybe 10 years ago or even 20 years ago, I probably would have had a different answer. But I think, you know, the one thing that I can't, well, there's a bunch of things I can't live without, but the one thing I think that is kind of a funny thing when I think about it is cats. We have two cats. I love them. I can't imagine life without having a cat. But I used to hate cats, actually. So for me to say that now is funny. But honestly, they just they drive me crazy. But they also are just really wonderful to have and are real family members.
Yes. So pets are our family members. Even I own a pet, so I feel the feelings. So,
Yeah.
so Colin, just to so that audience is also familiarized with your story. We all know you are an influencer on LinkedIn and about legal technology you post regularly. So can you tell us your life story and how did you reach to the point you are today?
Sure. Well, I can at least provide a summary of the journey, which is still ongoing. So back, I would say in high school, actually, I started along with some friends a website consulting company, and this was before kind of websites were a big thing. I'm dating myself a little bit there. But that was my first kind of foray into technology. So then fast forward a few years, college, I was actually deathly afraid of computer science, so I didn't take actually any computer science classes in college, but I still had this kind of underlying interest in technology. I then, years ahead, worked for a big law firm in New York as a paralegal, creating e-discovery databases. That gave me my first sort of real taste of technology as it relates to the legal profession. And I found that work to be really interesting, but the lawyers themselves really had very little interest in it. They just recognized that it needed to be done and were just asking me constantly, you know, when they could go in and do whatever they needed to do with it. So following that, in law school, there was very little talk of technology, but I still, again, was interested in technology and also why there was so little talk of it. So as I started to start my career as a lawyer, I just really wanted to learn more about it. And so the best way I thought for me to learn more about legal technology was to frankly just talk to people who were doing something in the space, whether it was teaching, whether it was creating a product, whether it was thinking about creating a product, or some combination of those three things. And so those conversations where I simply kind of just asked people to just tell me their stories, and I just sat back and listened, really helped inform my perspective and I think ignited that passion for legal tech. And now I am in sort of this position where I'm trying to also inform and inspire others about legal technology in every way that I can.
Wow. So Colin, very inspiring story. So as you said, you know, it was a bit ups and downs in understanding legal technology and getting in there. Do you think, like, because legal tech involves a lot of issues such as public policy, data privacy, and things like that. And there is another aspect, like traditional lawyers find it difficult to adapt to technology. So do you think there is some gap which we as lawyers are not able to fulfill, and what do you think is your approach to fulfill that gap?
That's a great question. There definitely is a gap for sure between the tech world and the legal world. And I do think that gap is narrowing in some ways, but it definitely still exists in some ways, both big and small. And I think the way to kind of overcome the gap or bridge the gap, if you will, is through a couple of things. Number one, education, making people and helping people feel more comfortable with technology, making them understand that they already use technology in some degree in their practice. So, really legal tech is not kind of asking them to necessarily have to learn something new, but more think about how they currently use their tools and how they could possibly use them better. And I also think another way to bridge the gap really is to have people who can kind of speak both languages, that is the language of tech and the language of law. So people perhaps like myself and others, particularly in the legal operations field, I would say, who can kind of help translate these different languages and make everyone understand kind of that they're basically talking about the same thing. They're just using different terms to describe them. So, all that being said, I think those are ways to overcome and bridge the gap. But ultimately, I think it's going to require some cultural change, which takes time. And I think part of it will be generational. Part of it will be perhaps be changes to how we teach lawyers about what it means to practice law. And frankly, it also just means, I think, better collaboration between the tech space and the legal space, whether that's on the education side or on the professional side. And that's, it's taking place now, but it's going to take some time. And I think there is certainly a desire for things to move faster because technology is not really waiting for anyone to kind of keep up with it. But at the same time, I think there needs to be some acknowledgement that you have to accept kind of the reality that you have and work to change it rather than simply just reject it and use that as a basis for how you want things to be improved.
Yeah, so I love the way you said that it's going to take time and it's a slow process, maybe generational process where the next generation comes and they are, because they are acquainted with the technology very well. So because we live in the world of instant gratification. For example, someone has started the business, they want the results tomorrow. But this process in the field of legal tech is a slower process. Am I right?
Yeah, it is slower. I think that the legal industry itself is notoriously slow to change. And I think that part of that is just built in. It's kind of a cultural thing because, frankly, law schools and business of law for a long time have operated under the same set of assumptions that have not been challenged. And legal tech and other areas, I think, are challenging those assumptions, and that is tough. But at the same time, we've seen this kind of story before, in the medical field. Medicine for a long time operated under sort of these assumed ways of doing things, and now has fully embraced technology and data and what have you. And I think that law is in some ways sort of similar to that story. We're just at the very beginning of that story.
Wow, awesome. I love the analogy of the medical field and the law because these two professions are considered as low noble professions. We do not want to indulge machines in these professions. And finally, we are doing it.
Yeah, exactly.
So Colin, you speak about perfect blend between law, technology, and business. So can you tell us something about perfect intersection of all three, and what is your take on that?
Sure. So it's an evolving relationship. And I think that the business world for a long time and still to this day operates kind of on a quantitative data-driven basis. It's all about the numbers. It's all about kind of how do we continue to exhibit growth and maintain growth and facilitate growth. The legal world for a long time has kind of operated under this, we want to make sure we do things right. And so it is kind of has traditionally been a slower, more sort of ad hoc kind of profession. And then technology, frankly, has just taken off. Technology is continuing to change and move forward at a very, very fast pace. And that is, I think, just an inherent part of how tech works is you create something and then you iterate and improve it. And as you iterate and improve, you learn, and that perhaps leads to new creations. And so I think the interplay between the three really is kind of a matter of making the legal profession, the legal industry, more data-driven, able to kind of understand and speak the language of business and really become more of a business partner, as opposed to kind of just a resource you go to as a last resort. And technology I see as sort of facilitating a change in how the legal industry is perceived and operates. And as I alluded to earlier, in response to another question of yours, it's an evolving relationship, and it's one that is continuing to move forward. Some would perhaps see it as at a glacial pace. I think that's moving perhaps a little bit faster than a glacier. But that being said, it is slow. But I think that relationship, is becoming one that is less sort of adversarial, less sort of antagonistic, and more symbiotic. But it's taking time to get to that point. And it's all about, I think, ultimately showing the ways in which technology can help people most in need of legal services get the needs they want in the ways that they want to get that help. And that's how I see legal tech ultimately is a way of better aligning the needs of legal consumers with those seeking to deliver legal services.
Wow, I love the aspect, like, business side of law can be probably facilitated by this law and technology together. So I think that is a great combination, because as you said, it is data driven. We have algorithms such as artificial intelligence, which works on iterations. We learn, we implement, we learn again, and things like that. So is this the basis of your AI and contracts under your organization? And how does that work?
Yeah, so, well, I think it's important to be clear about artificial intelligence, number one, in terms of what it is and what it isn't. Artificial intelligence at this point, we're not talking about robots. We're not talking about self-conscious, machines. What we're talking about are algorithms that are fed data and then provide you analysis and insights based off of the data that you feed to these algorithms. That's where artificial intelligence is right now. So we're seeing a lot of different applications of that in finance, in law, especially on the contracting side in terms of managing, negotiating, and analyzing contracts. And so AI really is that's where things are right now. Now, certainly at some point, I would hesitate to offer as to when I see that happening, but at some point, will we have robots that will perhaps think for themselves? That's certainly within the realm of possibility.
Yeah.
I don't think it's going to be a quick thing, or I would hesitate to think that it would happen within our lifetimes just because of the complications involved. But sure, that definitely is, down the line possible. So I really, something that really drives me when it comes to AI is just being realistic about it. With respect to kind of its use currently, as I mentioned, for example, Malbek, we have an AI component that helps you kind of negotiate and draft contracts, and also manage kind of the data in your contracts to see sort of where things can be improved. And you also see it in other areas as well in terms of analyzing, litigation data to kind of look at how different cases have been successful or not been successful in different court systems. So those are some current applications of AI. Again, I think we're kind of really at the early stages of AI in law, but we certainly are starting to see the potential of it. But again, I think it's important to be realistic about what AI is and the current state of AI.
Correct. So I think you clarified the misconception which many lawyers do have. I don't think people who are involved with technology so much, they have this misconceptions, but lawyers do have. If you are working in AI, you are going to take my job away, but that is not going to happen anytime soon, because AI is not at this stage, it is not that developed that they can take over lawyers.
Yeah, I mean, I would clarify a little bit on that statement, because I think that, if what you are doing are tasks that are repetitive, that are routine, that are time consuming, and kind of, are things that data-driven algorithm can do, then yeah, sure, AI could possibly, take over your job. But frankly, if that's the job that you have currently, yeah, you might want to question why that's your job, because you shouldn't be doing those things to begin with.
Yes.
Because surely there are more strategic things you can be doing, and that's really the kind of, I think, underlying principle of AI and of automation more generally, is to allow you to spend more time on more strategic, valuable work tasks and less time on these time-consuming, routine, standardizable tasks that that frankly are just are things that can be automated and AI can do. So that's kind of where I would clarify what your statement a little bit, which is not to say that it's coming for your jobs per se, but certainly, jobs are something that I think are evolving in terms of what they are and exactly what needs to be done by a human versus what can be performed by an algorithm.
Wow, awesome. So, Colin, now, switching gears, and as you have worked in with the workflow management platform for more than, I think, for about 5 years. So can you tell us something about what are the key aspects of managing workflows? I think that would be really helpful for the audience as well, if they can learn something about workflow management.
Yeah, well, I think it starts with kind of just understanding sort of, what it is. When I think about workflow management, what I'm really thinking about is, those things that I am doing each day, whether they are ongoing tasks or whether they are ad hoc tasks that come up during the day. And what happens usually is, you're kind of just tracking them manually, either remembering what you have to do, creating some sort of written to-do list that never goes away, or setting reminders for yourself on your computer. And really what workflow management tools are here to do is to help kind of make that less of a time-consuming manual task and provide a way for you to kind of see the state of play with respect to kind of what matters you have going on right now, what the state of each matter is, who's particular, in addition, who's involved in those matters in terms of what they're doing, and what work has been done and what work remains to be done. And also, what messages or documents have been exchanged relating to each matter as well. That's another aspect of it. And so these workflow management tools are really aimed at trying to kind of centralize and automate that work, because again, it's a task that is typically manual and time consuming that, quite frankly, you should not be doing. And also, quite frankly, lawyers and legal professionals are traditionally not very good at to begin with. That is just not a skill that they are trained to do. And yet that is a critical skill to have when you are actually practicing or participating in any kind of business with a legal aspect or a business in general. Is you need to keep track of what you have going on, what the status of each one is, what needs to be done, and what has been done. And that's where workflow management tools can really come into play and be quite valuable.
Yeah, I absolutely agree with it. We have CMS these days, like we have Google Streaks, we have other CMSs. So I think these are so helpful. Like everybody, I think whoever is managing their projects on any CMS, they are like, thank God we have something to manage projects. Otherwise, people used to do that on Excel sheets, maintaining deadlines. And these days it is so easy. We get reminders, we know on which date what needs to be taken care of and things like that.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, as businesses get more sophisticated and get bigger and grow faster, manually managing kind of your workflow and matters just becomes kind of an unmanageable and a task that is just almost impossible to do without having some tool to help you.
So Colin, just a quick question, like this is spontaneous. What are your favorite technology platforms or softwares that you want to go and thank the founders, that thank God you developed this?
Yeah, I mean, certainly, when it comes to contract management, Malbek, where I work, I happen to be a big fan of them, hence I work for them. The other one that I serve as an advisor for is Proxy. It's a workflow management platform that I happen to be a very big fan of. I think it is really useful and invaluable. I also have to be a big fan of other tools like there's Clio, which I like.
Yes.
There is, let's see, just lost my train of thought, but there's plenty of them out there that there's a lot of different useful ones that are out there. The really, I think the key thing to keep in mind is, we all have our favorite tools,
Yes,
but I think what's important is, you want to find the right tool that fits for what you are trying to achieve.
Yeah.
In other words, you want to find one that best helps you achieve what your ideal outcome looks like. So you want to know kind of what you want your outcome to be, and use that to guide you with respect to finding the right tool, because there are plenty of tools out there. It can be overwhelming to kind of look.
Correct.
But what can help you reduce that overwhelm and reduce kind of the anxiety you may have when you're doing the research is being guided by exactly what it is that you're trying to solve for.
Yeah.
So understanding your problem and understanding what a solution to that problem looks like, and then finding something that fits into that vision.
Correct. I'm glad you said that, because, problem of one person is different from the another. And though these software look as if they are the same, but they are not the same. Every software provides some novel points in them, which makes them a little bit different than the other. So basically, we have to find the right fit, what we require and what they are offering. And if that fit, we are able to get it, I think we should just go ahead and use that software.
Yeah, I mean, it's really kind of, sure, you want to know what other people are using, but if their situation, if their kind of process and business is different from yours, then as much as they may praise what they're using, and you may, appreciate that and want to use it, it may not necessarily be the right tool for you.
Yeah.
So you really need to keep in mind not just what other people are saying and using, but also how you work, what your business looks like, and what your needs are, because you really want the tool that you invest in to be one that works for you, your business, and is used by the people you want to be using the tool, because otherwise what you end up doing is you spend a lot of money on a tool and it just sits on a shelf somewhere.
Yeah. Awesome. So, Colin, now coming to your life again. So you have been part of many organizations. You have worked with big companies, organizations, and things like that. So what do you think, what role does work culture plays in an organization, and how success of an organization depends on the work culture they have developed?
Yeah, I think culture is incredibly important. I often speak about the importance of culture, because you can have great tools, you can have, a successful business, at least on, based on the numbers. But ultimately, if your culture is not good, if your culture is not one that is supportive, encouraging, collaborative, you're going to have less productive workforce, frankly, because they're not as happy. They feel like they're always under the gun. They feel like they're not being supported. They're not growing. So culture is incredibly important when it comes to the success of a business, any business really. And so, in terms of the companies I worked for, the cultures at these different companies have really run the gamut. There have been some that have been great, others that have, I think, left something to be desired. But, ultimately, each one, I think, has informed my view as to what a successful work culture looks like. And ultimately, I think, the key things for successful culture are, as I said, one that's collaborative, one that is supportive, one that takes sort of a people first approach and really treats people as opposed to cogs in a machine.
Wow.
And one that really kind of values the input and contributions of individual employees, regardless of what their role is and the seniority of what role they have.
I love how you put in that people have to be treated like people instead of resources or machines. So I kind of say this like, treat humans as human beings and not as human resources.
Yeah, absolutely. Right. And I think, I've also said this before, but I think sometimes what happens, especially in the legal field, is for a space that is ostensibly here to, serve others who are looking for legal help, it's kind of a dehumanizing profession in some ways. And that kind of, it seems like it's all kind of just unemotional and detached in some ways from reality. And I think, ultimately, if you're going to be helping someone, you have to recognize that every decision they make and what they say to you will not necessarily be rational, will not be based. In fact, it may be emotionally driven, because humans are emotional creatures. We are sometimes driven by our emotions more than anything else. So I really think it's important, if you're seeking to help others, to recognize that and treat others as humans and not just as sort of unemotional automatons. And that goes the same thing for lawyers. Is lawyers are also humans, and they need to, I think, listen to their innate humanity and not kind of put it to the side, because that can have detrimental impacts upon not just their ability to help others, but also their ability to be successful individually, because it can impact their mental health as well.
Yeah, so beautifully said. Lawyers are also humans. Sometimes when we work with lawyers, we feel like, oh my God, you are a human, you are not a machine. Please come to reality so that we can speak like human beings.
Right. And I mean, it's laughable. It's also, I think, detrimental. The profession, I think, has been hurt by this sort of dehumanizing aspect of it. And I, for one, have been outspoken in the need for lawyers and other legal people to all just treat kind of each other as humans, recognize our innate humanity, not kind of leave it at the door when we enter law school or when we leave law school.
I so agree with this. So Colin, coming to our quick rapid fire round, answer these questions very, very quickly. What are 3 things in life you're grateful for?
Let's see. I am grateful for my husband. I'm grateful for our cats, and I'm grateful for the opportunities that I've had to be who I am and doing what I'm doing.
Wow, awesome. Now, 2 traits that you think are useful for the legal career.
2 tricks that I think are useful. One is going in with a people first mentality. 2, I think, is recognizing the role of technology and its increasing importance in society.
Wow, people first and the role of technology. Awesome. And one aspiration you have for the future?
I think one aspiration I have for the future is to be better at slowing down and relaxing.
Wow.
I tend to work very fast and thrive and working, and I'm not so great at slowing down and actually kind of disconnecting. And so that's something I seek to be better at.
Wow. And I want more lawyers to listen to this. Like, lawyers should give themselves freedom to take breaks, to rest, and probably come back again stronger.
Absolutely. Yep. That's very much needed.
The rejuvenation is absolutely needed, which is sometimes kind of missed in our profession.
Yeah, absolutely.
So Colin, another question: how do you keep yourself motivated? Like you said that you take less of breaks, but what is one thing that keeps you motivated?
Curiosity. That's the one thing that keeps me motivated.
Wow.
Is I'm inherently curious and I'm always seeking to learn more, because the more I learn, the more I realize how little I actually know, and that just motivates me to want to learn more.
Awesome. So I read this, I think it was a quote somewhere, that the more we learn, the less we know. And if you don't learn, you know everything.
Right. Yeah. It's just, I think there is a inherent problem if you are not curious, if you are just kind of happy with what you know, because there's so much that you don't know, and you only know what you know. You don't know what you don't know, and that can often be a dangerous and detrimental place to be.
Correct. Absolutely. So, Colin, to conclude, can you share some key takeaways for young lawyers and legal entrepreneurs?
Absolutely. I think number one is you are in control of your destiny in terms of what you want to be doing. So as much as there may be pressure to conform and do what others are doing, don't seek control over what you want to be doing to others. Follow your passion, listen to yourself, understand what makes you happy, and try to find things for work and otherwise that can maintain that level of happiness within you. I think number 2 if you're interested in learning more about legal tech, figure out what aspect of legal tech draws you to it, and use that to help you figure out what you want to learn more about, because it's a big field. There's a lot going on. So I think that's something important. And 3 is, when you are working, there's more things you can do. There are so many different types of roles out there. So don't restrict yourself to just the more prominent, more sort of well-known types of roles, like working in-house or working at a firm. There are plenty of other opportunities for you. It's just a matter of exploring them through the lens of what makes you happy and what motivates you.
Wow, awesome. So I'll just reiterate these for our listeners. First is, you are in control of your destiny. So you should make your own path and follow that. Second is, figure out your what. What do you want? What do you want to do? And figure out your technology. What technology you want to explore. And the third is, don't restrict yourself. Explore your options and figure out the right options for yourself. So thank you, Colin. It was absolutely amazing to listen to you and interact with you. And I'm sure the audience is going to love this conversation.
Thank you very much. This was a great conversation. I really enjoyed the opportunity in speaking with you.
Thank you. Hey there, thank you for attending today's session. If you enjoyed today's session, do follow our channel and consider sharing it with a friend. My name is Priggya Arora, daughter of inspiring parents, alumna of IIT Kharagpur, engineer turned lawyer and entrepreneur, and now founder of PA Legal, where we help creators and innovators protect their intellectual property. Thank you.